Today I'm going to be showing you a very aggressive and tricky opening called the Ponziani opening. The thing about this is both of the natural move that black usually play in these types of position, we're going to hit them with d4 regardless, and it's going to be super aggressive. Watch the full video, try these in your games, and your ratings will go through the roof. Let's hop in. We're going to be learning it on chessrefs.com. So it's e4, e5. We tap the pawn, and then once they guard the pawn with the knight, we're not going to necessarily play the regular Italian, so it's not going to say that's the move to play. We're actually going to play the move pawn to c3. This move is going to surprise them a lot. And, once you're playing against players who usually play this regularly, they're going to either play knight f6 or bishop c5. Once they play bishop c5, we hit them with d4. And just like that, we already have a big center. And with a big center, we're going to start marching the pawns up the board to create some havoc. So he checks our king. We're just going to develop the knight to block the check. We wouldn't mind if he give up his bishop for a knight. And then once a move like pawn to d6 is played, a regular move, or even something like knight to f6, now we can hit them with pawn to d5, attacking the knight. And then just a simple moving away the knight to e5 is already losing. You guys are going to be noticing that most of these games, persons are already completely losing by move 15, because all we need to do here is hit him with queen to h4, checking the king, picking up the bishop, and that's already winning. Now, another line is, let's say you go e4, knight f3, hit them with the surprising move. You're also going to see knight to f6. So if you see bishop to c5, now you know what to do. If you see knight to f6, you still play pawn to d4. So it's like the easiest thing to learn. And if this knight decides to take on e4, now you play pawn to e5, just chasing the knights out the way. Now you take back the pawn. And again, all the natural moves, all the moves that look so natural in the Ponziani, they're all traps. A move like pawn to d6, chasing away the knight, is already a trap, because now we play bishop to b5 check. And if he had blocked with the bishop, then, we take the bishop and win the queen. So he had to block with the pawn. But we have 1, 2, 3 pieces covering c6. He only has 2 pieces guarding c6. So once we take on c6 and he takes, the knight takes on c6, hit the queen, hit the knight, and the bishop is on the same diagonal as the king. So once his knight takes, we take with check. And here we have an option. Do we take the rook, which is 5 points, or do we take the knight, which is 3 points? We're actually not going to take the rook, because if we take the rook, we're also going to be losing 3 points. So you're going to notice that it's going to be telling you all the moves to play, so that way you try them in your games. Now, another variation that we're looking on is, what if after you hit them with the surprising move and they play bishop c5, like what if you go d4 here? They take the pawn, you take, but the bishop did not check on b4. If the bishop did not check on b4, just develop your knight to c3. It's normal. They play knight to f6. Now we start chasing their knight about the board. The knight goes to g4. Again, you're going to see the reasoning behind the move on top of my head. Now we play pawn h3, neutralizing the knight, and we're actually going to be winning the opponent's knight here. Starting with d5, chasing away this knight. The knight had to move, hit them with bishop to g5, and then after pawn f6, we take on f6. And the pawn on g7 no longer guards the knight on h6. Now we take the knight on h6, and we're just ahead by 5 points. Ponziani is what we're trying to play with e4. After they play e5 and we play knight f3, then it will be the whole Ponziani opening. So e5, nf3, we hit the pawn. And here they usually play nc6, guarding the pawn. And this is where we're going to be playing our first surprise move that they're not used to. And that's pawn to c3. Not necessarily playing the Italian game, but we're basically saying, I'm going to be playing the move pawn to d4 next move. So if they play knight f6 or bishop c5, which are like the very regular moves that you're going to see, just go d4. Now, my opponent decided to play g6, which is very interesting. He just decided not to indulge in anything, but we're still going to be playing pawn to d4, getting like this massive center. And then after he fianchetted his bishop, we go bishop c4, and we're still applying a lot of pressure to his f7 pawn. Like anytime he tries to take on d4, then we have a very big center. Otherwise, we're just going to get our king out the center, finish our development, and we're doing good. He now has to worry about what's his plan to finish his development. I'm thinking knight e7 castle, pawn to e6. That has to be wasting time. That has to be wasting time. Is he losing already? If I takes knight takes, bishop takes, sack, king takes, check. Like, is he able to play king to f6 in that position? So if let's say I take on e5, right? Let's say I take on e5 and he takes with the knight. I take his knight, he takes my knight. I sack my bishop with check. Let's take. He takes with the bishop. And what I'm calculating is if I sack my bishop with check and he plays king f7 and I play queen d5, will he be able to get away with king f6? That's the question. King f6, there's bishop g5, check. And then his king takes on g5. I take the bishop, hit the king, hit the rook, win the game. GG's. Another Ponziani strike, sack on f7. It's crazy. The thing about the Ponziani is like they just don't know it. You know, they're used to the whole Italian stuff. It's not something that they play against a lot. Now we check. I think he has to play king f8, actually. King f6 or king to e7 or king to e8 is just losing. If he plays these moves, then he's not losing. So he did play king f8. Now I just take and attack the rook. But I'm also threatening some bishop to h6 ideas, which if he plays queen to f6, okay, he didn't play queen to f6. Queen f6, bishop h6 would have just GG's. Now I'm trying to go bishop g5 and pp on the pp, but he's just going to play king to f7 or g7 and guard the knight. So with that being said, I'm going to check on h6 and force the king to move. And then once I force the king to move, I just get my king out the center. So king f7, knight g4, I'm not worried about. Queen e7, I'm not gonna want to trade the queens off the board. But for now, let's just get the king out the center of the board. We're already ahead by an entire pawn. Rook to e8 makes a lot of sense. You know, he's chasing away my queen. He's trying to take on e4. Okay, let's go queen d4. Rook takes e4, I'm expecting, and then I'm going to pull my queen back to maybe d2 or d3. And no, definitely d3. And then I'm going to be able to play knight d2 and attack the rook. He's definitely not able to play knight takes. He just didn't decide to take the pawn. Guess it was too risky. So now I'm just going to develop my knight, guard my pawn. And because my rook is on the same line as his king, I'm definitely going to play f4 followed by e5, just trying to open the position. Because, I mean, his king is still not safe. He's able to pull the king back to g8, but that's not safe. So queen e7 was played. He has 1, 2, 3 attackers. I have 1, 2 defenders. What if I still play f4, allow him to take on e4, check him on g7, king has to go to e6, grab the free knight, he takes the queen, I takes king f7? Does that just win back the material? That's crazy. No, it actually doesn't. Let's play f4 because I can always trade the queens first, then take the knight on e4. So knight g, he decided to play knight g4 instead. But the whole point of what I wanted to do was get my queen access to the g7 square. I'm not gonna say this is GG's, but I mean this has to be bad for him. The correct move has to be queen g7, and then after he moves the king, we're just gonna keep applying some more pressure. For example, hit him with a move like pawn to f5, checking the king. Now he's running back with the king, and I'm trying to play pawn to f6 in this position. Pawn f6, if he trades the queen, I take with the bishop, and then f8 is just f7, f8 is winning. Yeah, let's just play pawn f6 because his queen is under attack, so he has to trade queens. I'm not going to take with the pawn and allow knight takes h6 because that would just be free bishop. But once takes, guess he's able to play king to e6. He's not. It's over. It's actually over. Like Ponziani is crushing people. They just don't know what to do against it, which is why he resigned. Ponziani opening. So after e5, as we trained, we're going to be playing knight to f3 to hit the pawn. But then when they play knight c6 to guard the pawn, we don't necessarily have to go Italian. We can just go c3. This is the Ponziani opening, where it has a lot of traps and they have to know exactly what to do. Now, f5 is definitely a good try. It's like a counter gambit. We're definitely not going to be taking the f pawn because then once he pushes the pawn, it attacks the knight. What I want you guys to notice is how he's already weakening this diagonal pointing towards his king. Like, I'm always punishing players for weakening this diagonal, pointing towards their king. So let's see how he will react. As what we trained, I'm still going to play e4. Once we play c3, we play d4, and we're opening the center of the board immediately. Knight to f6 was played, which means if I take on e5, knight takes e4 should be weird. Unless he's trying to trade first, then play knight takes e4. The idea of playing d5 is also decent, but then he takes. Let's go with knight takes e5. Like once my queen gets any form of access to this diagonal pointing towards this king in the future, then I should get something. So he took on e5, we take on e5, attacking the knight, and I'm assuming he's going to play knight takes e4. That's the only move that makes sense here. Now, my queen is getting access to h5 with check, but after pawn g6, I'm not really seeing anything, to be honest. So what I'm going to do instead is play bishop c4, because I'm still trying to control these diagonals pointing towards his king. I'm trying to ensure that his king does not easily get castled. After he developed his bishop, I'm thinking queen d5 threatening mate, but he should be able to play queen e7. So let me just get my king out the center of the board, knowing that he's not able to get his king out the center of the board. Now we're going to be starting our attack. Queen h4 is a decent move. He's threatening my f2 pawn 3 times. I'm only guarding it 2 times. So I have to react to this move. But what I'll do is I'll play queen to f3. It's the whole offense is the best defense thing, where I defend my f2 pawn with my queen. Now I have 3 defenders, and I'm also applying some pressure to his f5 pawn. So if he's not careful, he may lose this pawn. And my plan from here is just to complete my development. V5 is interesting, but that should be a blunder. I mean, why is that not a free pawn? Pawn to d5 hits the queen and the bishop at the same time. Yeah, that would be a nice move. Pawn to g4, I'm assuming is what he's trying to play. I'm just going to keep developing my pieces here, though. Let's just play bishop to e3. Let's not try to rush and get greedy. I can always play knight d2 and complete my development. If he plays g4, I may consider taking on f5, but the move queen to f4 just makes a lot of sense. Because if I take on f5, I have to ensure that I'm ready to face pawn d5, which would be a decent discovered attack. So he took on e3, and I'm going to take with the queen, not doubling up my pawns, even though my rook would have gotten an open file. I'm going to play the move knight to d2 and finish my. But then he blundered. I mean, guy was playing some decent chess. But he did a drawback blunder where the pawn was guarding the knight, and then he tries to attack my queen, and then he just blundered the knight. No, I'm just gonna develop my knight to d2, and it's not even gonna be a trade. Like knight d2 to f3 should already be winning. I mean, this is winning. And he made another game-changing blunder. Like this is actually checkmate in 2 moves. Because I want you guys to notice how my queen is on the same line as his king. And the fact that he just played pawn to d6, he's just inviting me to do a discovered attack. And a discovered attack is where we move one piece out the way and it comes with checking the opponent's king. Now he has to, well, he could block with the bishop and it would be mating 3, but it's the same thing. If he moves his king to either d8 or f8, then queen to e7 is just going to be a checkmate. So we basically checkmate our opponent 14 moves playing the Ponziani, which is crazy. Oh, he was actually able to go to d7. So am I not going to checkmate? There's no mate here. Oh, check, king up, check, king up, mate. That's a lot of move, though. That's a lot of move. I thought it would have been. I thought he had to play king d8 or king f8, but it's still mate. So we check, as we said. No, that's not what I said. Oh, but this is actually a earlier one. I was actually thinking of queen e6, but that's actually a checkmate. All right, so we're testing out the Ponziani. And it happens after they play e5. So let's wait on e5. So e5, we develop the knight, hit the pawn. Same idea. We're waiting on knight c6. Now we surprise them with pawn c3. One of these moves that they just don't see very often. Very aggressive, very tricky, full of traps. Knight f6, they attack the pawn. We do not guard the pawn. We play pawn to d4 and just lash out in the center. Now, keep in mind, whenever they take on d4, we push past attack the knight so that way we're forcing the knight to be moving again and again. And if the knight takes on e4, we push d5. Now, immediately playing pawn to d5, that's definitely a nice idea. But usually in these types of positions, it's good to just play knight takes e5, and then if they take, we take, and then after knight takes e4, it's just development from here. So let's take on e5, hit the knight. Usually the knight takes on e4. And as we said, it's just development from here. I'm going to start by playing bishop to d3, applying some pressure to the knight. I'm also trying to just quickly get my king out the center of the board. Now, keep in mind that my bishops are pointing towards the opponent's king. But then he decides to play knight g5. That move was definitely not necessary. Like, no need to be moving the knight. Again, let me just get my king out the center. We know the drill. We know what the drill is from here. Our king is out the center. His king is in the center. Our goal is to start our attack. I'm assuming he's going to castle his king next, but I'm just going to try everything in my power. to not make it easy for him to castle. So first I'm going to play the move pawn to f4, attack the knight, which means if he castles his king, he loses the knight. So he has to move the knight. He pulls the knight back to e6. Again, he's trying to castle. What do? We're not able to legally prevent castling, but now we play pawn to f5, hit the knight, forcing the knight to move again. And all we're trying to do is, even though we're not able to directly prevent him from castling, we're indirectly preventing him from castling by just attacking other stuff. So now he still has to move the knight. Okay, bishop to c5 check is interesting. I mean, he's basically responding to my attack with an attack on my king. I have to play king to h1, so let's not think too much. And then he plays pawn to knight to g5, but my bishop covers the square. His queen is guarding the square though, so it's not like I'm going to be winning that knight or anything. But let's say I play pawn to f6 though. I mean, queen no longer attacks guards the knight. If he takes, I takes. The knight is still under attack. That's one way to play. I also like the idea of just playing queen to h5, attacking the knight. But I think he's able to play pawn to h6, guard the knight. Maybe at that point is when I play pawn to f6. Yeah, let's do that. Let's go queen to h5, hit the knight, because it's usually best to develop, like if you can. I'm still preventing him from castling, by the way. Keep that in mind, because now I have two pieces attacking the knight. He only has the queen guarding the knight, so I'm playing a lot of development move, and I'm preventing him from castling at the same time. And then the knight went back to e4. First thing I'm thinking of is e6. Like hit him with e6, but then he just castles. And okay, there's also queen to g6 trying to hit this pawn, but then he just castles. And if bishop h6, oh, there is bishop h6. Oh no, there's knight f2. Knight f2. Okay, do I just sacrifice the rook, attack his rook, and then play bishop? Let's do that. I'm gonna do something crazy. Or do I take, then bishop g4? So I could take, and then queen g4. I could go knight d2, but there's knight f2. Let's go queen g4 immediately, allowing knight f2. And I'm basically saying if he goes knight f2, I sack the rook. He's going to be ahead by an exchange, but then I'm going to take a pawn. So he's only going to be ahead by a point, and I'm going to be the one with the attack. So he checks. Let's sack the rook. And then once he takes g7 is left unprotected. His rook is left unprotected. He's just never going to get castled anymore. But I still need to ensure that I get these pieces in the game very, very quickly. If I'm not able to get them in the game very, very quickly, then this attack may not work. So he plays rook to f8. Now we have to ensure that our moves comes with tempo. Two moves I'm thinking of, bishop h6 or bishop g5. Hit the queen, there's queen d7. So let's go bishop h6. Now we have two pieces attacking this rook. He only has the king guarding the rook. So he has to play something like queen e7 or king e7, where if I take on f8, that's just me getting back my material, by the way. He pulls the bishop back, which is a very nice move. It's a very nice move because it saves the rook. I'm thinking of just e6, just opening up everything. There's also queen takes h7, which traps the rook. There's just knight d2, just finishing our development. Like his position is just so bad. Let's just play knight d2. Like I'm not seeing exactly what he could do to like try to get out of this. So I'm just gonna bring all my pieces in the game, and then the attack is just gonna be brutal. Even though we're down by a pawn or a point, we're still not trying to be too materialistic. Because being too materialistic while you're attacking will steer you away from the attack, and you don't want that. Queen h4 is interesting. The thing is, though, it doesn't attack anything. Based on my calculations, I think the guy's in trouble already. Because the bishop is the piece that is guarding the rook. So if I'm able to constantly attack that bishop, it could be a removing the guard tactic on his rook. For example, pawn b4 or knight b3 is what I'm thinking of. I like the idea of pawn b4 though, because it seems more forcing. Like, he has to react to it. Pulling the bishop back loses the rook. Putting the bishop here, losing the bishop. Putting the bishop on e7, I hit the bishop again. So, guy's in trouble now. Okay, he just left the bishop hanging. I think he wants to just castle the king, and it's okay. I'm gonna lose the bishop. Like, what if I play e6 though? Like, how annoying can I be? Because taking the bishop, he castles the king. Okay, I'm still winning, but can I do anything to keep his king in the center of the board? Like e6, if he casts like take with check. E6, if takes, bishop takes. I like e6. Again, I'm still not trying to be too materialistic. Like if I could keep his king in the center of the board, it's over. I mean, it's already over if I take bishop, but I just I'm trying to get more. If he castles, I get more. If he takes, bishop takes. I'm thinking of rook e1, but the queen is there, which means I'm thinking of knight f3, rook e1. Let's see. Okay, so he did decide to castle, which means I'm getting more than just getting one piece. And this is why whenever you see a good move, always look for a better one. So now I take the bishop with check. He has to react to this. And then I don't really care how he decides to take the pawn. Maybe he doesn't even take the pawn, but then I'm going to take the bishop and we're going to be ahead by two pieces. Like we're 20 moves in the Ponziani, by the way. Like they're not managing take back with anything. He moves the king. Now we take the bishop. We're ahead by two pieces. His rook is also still very vulnerable on f7. In fact, he's now not able to take my pawn because he's going to lose his rook. Knight f3 coming, rook b1 coming. You know what's funny? Instead of taking the bishop, I could have played queen bishop to g5. So he plays rook to g8. What if I still play bishop g5? No, that won't work. I think I have to just take here or just pull back to here or here. Okay, let's say I take. He's gonna take my bishop. So let's play one of those offense is the best defense move then, where we play knight f3, not moving the queen, but counter-attacking his queen. So that way, if he takes my queen, we take his queen. And then if he moves his queen away, we move our queen away and we will not lose the bishop. So that was a very nice defensive resource. So he moves the queen to f2. Now we're able to move. Oh no, we're not able to move the queen. If we move the queen, anywhere we move the queen, we're getting mate on g2. So we have to come up with more offense as the best defense move. He's attacking the queen, we can't move the queen. Let's play rook to f1. No, if he takes our queen, we still take his queen. Maybe he tries to sack his queen, but we're just going to take the queen. Our queen is also guarded. And then he takes on a2. It's actually crazy. I don't think I'm not allowed to move the queen. I cannot move the queen. So I'm going to keep playing attacking moves on his queen. But I think eventually I'm going to have to sack my queen. So why not just do it now? Like f6 takes, pawn takes. Yeah, let's just do that. Let's just go f6. Keep in mind, I'm sacrificing my queen. But if he takes my queen and I play pawn takes, I'm threatening to, well, it's not an immediate threat. But once I take on h7 and I queen the pawn, I should be able to get back or have enough material. So he took, I take. The good thing is I'm not losing in material. The position is actually equal. So once I queen this pawn, it's over. He cannot allow me to queen. But I have two pawns that is about to queen. So if he takes this pawn, I queen, which means I'm also threatening to play bishop g5, hit the rook. And if he moves the rook, I queen, and then I'll get another queen. So he plays f6, which is a nice move. You see, this is a prophylactic move. He knows that I'm trying to play bishop g5, so he decides to play the move pawn to f6. But I'm able to also play bishop takes h7. Again, if he takes, I queen. If he doesn't do anything, I'm still gonna queen. And if he loses the rook and I take the rook, my d7 pawn could turn into a queen. Now he plays d4, which means if I queen, the rook takes, my bishop takes, his queen takes. So here's what I'm going to do. Before I do anything, whenever you find a good move, look for a better move. Hit him with rook to e1 first. I want to do the entire sequence where I queen, rook takes, I takes, queen takes, but then I'm going to be right in time to hit him with rook to e8 check, and we're winning the queen. It's funny because I think it's actually over. Like the position is equal. I do not have a queen on the board, but it's just over. Like I'm pulling the queen back to f8 doesn't change anything. I'm going to play the exact variation that we spoke of. Queen the pawn first, and once the rook takes, I take the rook, attack the queen. The funny thing is, taking back my bishop will be a checkmate. So I think he has to take the pawn in this scenario. So takes, I take. He has to take the pawn. But okay, now I'm ahead by 4 points. I'm still trying to find a way to win his queen here. Like, if I could defend the e8 square, then rook e8 is going to be winning. But I just can't, to be honest. So let's just play knight takes d4. I'm now ahead by 5 points without a queen on the board. It's a rook, two bishops, and a knight versus a queen. This is called an imbalanced position, by the way. Guy also only has 30 seconds on his clock. So he plays h5, which means once I attack his back rank, the king goes to a7. I could still try to set up some forts on his king, to be honest, but let's just attack here. Let's go bishop e6, hit the queen. I want to be able to play knight b5, and it comes with check, or knight b5, preventing his king from running. I'm trying to keep him in a little mating net. For example, now that he attacks my bishop, Well, I can't do it now. I have to move the bishop. Let's go bishop f4. I'm just pointing the pieces towards his king. Knight b5 next is coming. He has no time though, so we're not going to be able to see anything. But let's go knight b5. He pushes the pawn again. He's trying to queen. Now our plan is once we get the rook to e8, it's going to be a checkmate. So what I'm going to do is pull my bishop back to f5, sacking the bishop because if he takes, he loses. He didn't save anything, which means that's just a checkmate. So we're going to be testing out the Ponziani against a 1300 player. Let's hit the pawn. He guards the pawn, and then we surprise him with pawn to c3. Now, pawn to d4 is going to be the next move, unless we see d5. Like, the thing about the Ponzian is they have to know about d5 followed by f6, which is two move that does not seem to be principled. So after knight f6 attack the pawn, as we said, we don't even care about the pawn on e4. We immediately play pawn to d4, just launching in the center of the board. Taking on e4, thinking that they're winning a pawn, could actually lead to them losing a piece. Taking on d4 could give us like a very big center. So they did take on d4. And as we spoke about, we're going to play the move pawn to e5, hit the knight. Now we're planning to just have big center. Usually in these types of positions, they play knight g4 because they have two pieces attacking the knight. Knight e4 is interesting. That's very interesting. Like taking this pawn is good, but I really like the idea of playing bishop to c4 because bishop c4 already targets the f7 pawn. This is actually a trap in the Ponziani. Once we go bishop c4, taking on c3 is actually immediately losing an entire piece because of the unprotected knight. I think he has to play pawn to d5. Yeah, which he did. And now I'm going to en passant, gets this diagonal for my bishop. If his knight takes my bishop, is going to be under attack. So I have to just pull my bishop back. But he decided to take with the queen, and that didn't really gain him any time. So I'm not just going to get my king out the center of the board. His king is in the center of the board, by the way. So I'm immediately thinking of moves like rook e1 and just pinning the knight to the king. So he needs to act fast here. Okay. Yeah, he's not acting fast. He's going for some weird bishop to g6 tricks. I don't think that's going to be good for him. Like, okay, fine. The king is in the center. The knight and the king is on the same line. Rook to e1 is a no-brainer. We get a piece to pin, we're going to pin that piece. We're not afraid of this bishop going to h3, threatening a mate. In fact, we're going to be using our fence is the best defense on him. We're not going to be playing like a coward pawn to g3 and give him time to play attacking moves against us. If the bishop goes to h3, we hit him with knight h4, which is what he did. So instead of playing g3, we play knight h4. We prevent the checkmate, we attack the queen. How is he going to save the queen and save the knight at the same time while ensuring that once he moves the queen, he keeps the knight guarded? I'm not seeing that. It's like every 10 moves, we're winning a piece playing the Ponziani. People are getting checkmated on move 15, which is crazy. They just don't know what to do against it. So the queen went over to f6, which means my knight is under attack. It means that his bishop is also hanging. But here's what I'm going to do. Before we even take the free bishop, we're going to take the knight with check. Now, his king is in check. His bishop is under attack. I'm guarding my knight. If he doesn't want to lose two pieces, he has to just block with the bishop and admit that he's down by a piece. Otherwise, if he plays something like bishop e7, knight e7, then I take another piece, and we're going to be ahead by two pieces at move 12. So he plays bishop to e6, which is fair. I'm ahead by a piece. I'm now trying to trade pieces off the board. Like, I take on e6, he takes back on e6. We have two pieces attacking his bishop. He has two pieces guarding the bishop, but the bishop is pinned. Like, what do we know about pin pieces? Like, what do we do to them? We know about PP on the PP. So I'm going to hit him with queen to b3. Thematic Ponziani move. We have one, two, three pieces attacking his bishop on e6, but that's not the only thing. I'm also threatening to capture his unprotected pawn on b7. And if he allows me to take on b7, his rook and his knight are going to be forked. So the only defense I'm thinking of is knight a5, which looks like it's a fork, but it's not. So he decided to castle his king, which is going to save him to survive a bit longer. And because I have so many attacks on this bishop, like, why not just takes, takes, takes? Oh, I cannot do that. If takes, takes, rook takes, I lose the knight. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take with check. Like, I'm going to take. But after the pawn takes, I'm gonna now pull my knight off the edge of the board. I'm threatening to play in bishop g5, which is a skewer. I'm also threatening to take on e6, which is just a free pawn. And keep in mind, we're already ahead by a piece. My knight on b1 is not even developed as yet. And okay, I was about to say he's being greedy and he's capturing pawns, but if I play bishop to g5, wait, man, if I play bishop g5, hit the queen. If he moves the queen, I take. If he leaves the queen hanging to take on b2, I take the actual queen because the bishop guards my rook. And then if he takes my bishop, then I take. My d1 square is always going to be under attack. Okay, let's go bishop g5. This is called a skewer. It's not as easy as it looks though, because queen to g6 also attacks my rook. But if he plays queen g6 to attack my rook, I'm thinking of just hitting him with queen to e6, attacking his queen. There's still no back rank. Okay, there's something he could do. I'm not gonna lie. Like he's able to check on d1, and then once I take the rook, he takes my rook. But he literally doesn't gain anything. It's just a defensive move for him not to lose. There's also pawn to there's also pawn to c2, which would be very interesting. Because if he plays pawn c2 and I take the queen, rook to d1 could lead to a mate. But if he plays pawn c2, I'm just going to develop my knight. My whole back rank is safe, and his rook and queen is still going to be under attack. Okay, he did find pawn c2. I mean, that was a very resourceful move, but we're just going to be using principles. The guy's attacking the knight. Do not get greedy and take the queen. Rook to d1 is going to lose. So we're going to just play knight c3. No, the knight, the queen, the rook guards the d1 squares. There's no pawn c1. And okay, he's still going to be losing material. And then the guy played knight d4, another aggressive looking move. Yo, this guy is very resourceful. I'm not gonna lie. Because now if I take his queen, he takes my queen. I take his rook, he takes my rook. I take his queen, he takes my queen. I take his knight, and then he takes my rook, and then I take his rook, and then he takes my bishop. And I have a rook and two knights, and he's gonna have a rook and a bishop. Okay, that's also winning. What if I take on d4? If I take on d4, then wait, if I take on d4, rook takes e4, I take the queen. If I take on d4, then there's queen takes g5, and he saves his rook. So we're gonna have to go with this. We're gonna have to go with this variation. I take his queen, he takes my queen. And if I save my rook, if I move my rook, he takes. So let's just take here. Now my bishop is attacking his rook. There's no rook d1, by the way. I have a lot of defense, so he has to take here. It looks like the position is equal, but then I'm able to take his rook. And now the king has to take, and we're still ahead in material. So knight d4 is what I'm going to play just to get rid of this annoying c2 pawn, so that way I'm able to take on a7. And this is just going to be a very smooth win. Like I'm ahead by an entire piece. So he decided to just queen and just give me. And then he decided to make another blunder, which is bishop c5 and attack my knight. But what he did not see was the fact that his king and his bishop is on the same color. When there's two knights on the board, you have to be looking out for forks, bro. Now I hit you with knight to e6, checking the king, hitting the bishop, take on c5. GG's, bro. Okay, fine. Like, my knight is under attack. Let's just move the knight. We're in the end game. Like, the goal is to attack weak pawns. I'm going to move this knight out the way as well, grab this pawn, but the opponent resigns.